From North America's dense forest to the Himalayas' isolated highlands, stories of strange creatures that lurk just beyond the veil of our understanding have been passed down through generations. These cryptids, based between the realms of myth and reality, are a tapestry woven from the fears, folklore, and whispers of our cultures worldwide. Are these beasts mere legends born of superstition, or do they hide in the dark corners of our world, waiting for the moment they are finally revealed? The hunt for answers begins. But remember, some things are better left undisturbed. Welcome to Myth and Lores, a journey into the dark and divine. Without further ado, let's jump into another lore. Unicorns are often seen as a symbol of purity, grace, and beauty in most Western cultures, but they have a deeper, darker side in mythology and folklore. The unicorn's history is filled with contradictions, blending themes of innocence with violence, healing with danger, and light with darkness. While much of the modern conception of the unicorn has been sanitized into a gentle, magical creature, earlier myths and legends painted a more complex, sometimes unsettling picture. The unicorn's blood. In some ancient texts, particularly in medieval Europe, it was believed that the blood of a unicorn had miraculous healing properties. However, this blood was also considered extremely dangerous. A potion made from the blood could cure any disease, but it also had the potential to drive people insane or kill them if not prepared correctly. The idea that something so pure could also hold such power and danger plays into the duality of the unicorn and darker mythologies. The dark unicorn, wild and uncontrollable. Some early accounts describe unicorns as not peaceful but untamable and violent creatures. In ancient Persian and Indian mythology, unicorns were seen as powerful, wild beasts, creatures of chaos that could be revered and feared. In Persian art, the unicorn often appears alongside lions, symbolizing strength and aggression. These creatures were so powerful that they could wreak havoc on entire cities or forces of invaders, signaling a more dangerous aspect of their nature. In the Middle Ages, unicorns were often depicted as ferocious beings that a virgin could only tame. The idea of a virgin, usually symbolizing purity and innocence, was said to act as a mediator between man and the wild forces of the unicorn, which could otherwise destroy anyone who tried to approach it. However, not all virgin taming stories were about the triumph of goodness. The notion of a virginal sacrifice, often portrayed as the unicorn's violent death, was part of a troubling motif that suggests that the price of purity might be destruction or sacrifice. The unicorn and death. The concept of unicorns being linked to death can be found in several darker mythological traditions. The Celtic folklore, unicorns were believed to be omens of death. A unicorn's sudden appearance in the woods or near a village was often seen as a prelude to a disaster or death. In some stories, a unicorn would appear just before the death of a great leader or warrior, and his presence would mark the end of an era. This connection between a unicorn and death also appears in Christian symbolism. Early medieval bestiaries, illustrated books about animals, often depicted a unicorn as a Christ-like figure symbolizing purity and innocence. However, these bestiaries also suggested that the unicorn was bound to be sacrificed in the end, as it was always captured and killed by hunters. This idea echoes the death of Christ, innocence being sacrificed to save humanity. A unicorn's horn, a dangerous weapon. The horn of the unicorn, a central feature in this mythos, was revered and feared. In earlier European tales, the horn was not just a symbol of purity, but also a powerful weapon. The unicorn's horn, known as the alicorn, was believed to be able to neutralize poisons and act as a protective talisman. Still, it was also associated with a violent and unpredictable force. It could pierce the hearts of attackers or bring down entire armies if wielded as a weapon. In many tales, the unicorn's horn is coveted by kings and warriors who see it as the ultimate prize. However, the hunters of unicorns were often depicted as tragic figures. They would pursue these rare creatures not only for the horns, but also to possess their power, which would, in turn, often lead to their demise. The alicorn's power could not be taken lightly or controlled, and attempting to harness it often led to dark consequences. The unicorn and the wild hunt. In some European traditions, the unicorn was associated with the wild hunt, a mythic procession of spectral riders often led by a god or a deathbringer figure. The wild hunt was a supernatural event where the dead or souls of the restless were hunted through the night skies, often bringing chaos and doom. The unicorn, a creature of the forest and wild places, was said to be hunted by these ghostly riders, further tying the unicorn to death, destruction, and the uncontrollable forces of nature. In some versions of the wild hunt, the unicorn is not just a passive victim, but an active participant, a creature transformed or corrupted by the chaos surrounding it. This version reflects a more tragic, darker view of the unicorn, once a symbol of purity, now caught in a cycle of violence and death. The unicorn in Dark Ages and Renaissance. During the Renaissance, the unicorn was still viewed as a creature of mystery and power, but its symbolism began to change. It was no longer just a creature to be hunted for its horn or its blood. It became a symbol of untamed wilderness and a struggle between civilization and nature. However, even during this period, the unicorn retained a connection to the darker elements of the human psyche. In the 16th century, the unicorn became a popular emblem of the Virgin Mary in Christian art, but it was often depicted as a creature that was both pure and doomed. The iconic image of the unicorn impaled by a hunter's spear, representing Christ's sacrifice, appears in religious and secular works of art, where the unicorn's tragic death is a constant theme. The unicorn as a harbinger of the apocalypse. In some apocalyptic traditions, the unicorn appears as a harbinger of the end of times. This was particularly prominent in 16th century European eschatology, where the unicorn was thought to be a creature that would appear in the final days of the world. In these stories, the unicorn's death will mark the onset of a cosmic upheaval where the boundaries between life and death, good and evil, would be shattered. The unicorn's symbolism in these apocalyptic tales often suggested the triumph of the forces of chaos and destruction rather than salvation. In these darker stories and interpretations, the unicorn becomes more than just a beautiful, elusive creature. It symbolizes dangerous power, untamable nature, and the fragility of purity in a world fraught with violence and death. The unicorn's mythos reflects the human fascination with beauty, innocence, and the darker forces that seek to destroy them. That concludes this lore. If you like what you heard, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next lore. Bye.